Every time the pressure rises, we play better. Let's go take down the champ.
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Brute Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.
Hello everyone and welcome to Ultiworld's coverage of the Pro Flight Finale here in Middletown, New York. We're getting set here for this matchup between Philadelphia Amp and Seattle Mixtape, a top 5 matchup in the Ultiworld Power Rankings. Amp entering today's game 2-0 so far on the day. Mixtape 1-0 playing and beating Raleigh in their first game out of DC. Mixtape starting on defense, Khalif El Salam starting with the opening pull. I am Chris McGlynn alongside Keith Rayner, bringing this game to you here in Middletown, New York. Sun peeking out right now, getting a little bit brighter here as the day turns into the afternoon. Deep shot right off the bat. Trissolini looking downfield for Spiva, just a bit overthrown. We had our first turnover of the game just like that. Mixtape gets an early chance at a break.
Nice pressure from El Salam to make the window small. Stall count gets kind of high, so Trissolini under a little bit of duress himself as the thrower, and not enough float on that one.
Oh, Safari here matching up against Burt Abbott. Tie 5 matchup here, as mentioned before. Amp entering today's game. Number 1, as that's a turnover right out of bounds there. Just a little bit out of the reach of the laying out Lonnie Nguyen. And back on offense here is Philly. Chance to get a hold. Robert Ruse now with the disc, middle of the field, swinging around to Spiva. Nicky Spiva, formerly of Washington, D.C.'s Truck Stop, joining Amp this year. Upfield. Into the end zone, that's going to be Sean Mott beating Reed Hendrickson there for the goal. Mott with the first point of the day here for Amp. And Philly jumps out to a 1-0 lead.
So a bit of a rocky start for both the offenses, but after exchanging turnovers, a short field opportunity punched in by Amp with little resistance.
Now, both teams entering this game undefeated so far, Keith, but they've struggled a little bit, and so far what we've seen, Philly played a pretty close game against Raleigh out of D.C., formerly known as Ambiguous Gray, and their opening game of the day, 13-10, the final there. A little bit more surprising, I think, than the final scoreline that a lot of people expected. And then, of course, Seattle coming out, and it's a little bit of a slow start against Raleigh before pulling away there, winning that one 15-8. So common opponent makes it a little bit easier for us to judge so far how they've done. But so far, both teams still appear to be settling in. This is definitely the highest caliber opponent each team has faced so far in this tournament.
A rematch of last year's national championship game. So programs that are familiar with one another and have a lot of success behind them. So both headed to the World Club Championships earlier in the summer.
That's right. Both teams making the quarterfinals. Amp falling in the semis against Seattle's BFG, the other mixed team out of Seattle. Mixtape falling to Slow White out of Boston in the quarterfinals. So definitely not the finishes I think both programs were hoping to have, but a thriller last year in that national championship game. What a game that was. Oh, we got a layout D right off the start. That's Spencer DeRue. Unbelievable effort there to get that. The Cornell product giving Carolyn Normile on this Philly defense a chance for an early break.
Tremendous opportunity from Amp from that defensive play.
Normile around into the end zone, and DeRuse gets the bookends. Unbelievable effort from DeRuse to get the layout on the opening throw. And then Normile, a little high release break, and that's going to be a goal for Amp. 2-0 now, Philly in front, coming out to a hot start.
What a way to seize momentum. Not the type of play you probably see from a team as seasoned as Mixtape. Bolton just not quite on the same page with Burton. Burton obviously frustrated. And then Normile, the easy around break. And DeRue gets an emphatic bookends to start this game 2-0.
That is quite the impact to have in what is one of his first seasons with this team. Amp jumping out 2-0 now, and you mentioned it right there. That's not something we're used to seeing from Mixtape. Obviously, last year, national champions in the mixed division, beat kind of like looked like the strongest team in the mixed division throughout the entire year before ending up coming over with a double game point win over Amp. In the end, it was a phenomenal finish for them, but so far this season, it's definitely been a little bit more of a struggle. We've definitely not seen the same level of play from Mixtape. They struggled at the World Ultimate Club Championships, struggled at the U.S. Open, kind of managed to grind their way to a fifth place finish there. So definitely will be interesting to see how Mixtape bounces back now as Philly gets the pull starting this third point of the game.
I think there's always kind of been the sense that with so much continuity that Mixtape would probably just come around by the time the year was over. It's Mark Burton, the player of the year last year, takes the centering pass, and he's a big part of why people believe in this team.
Another uncharacteristic turnover there. Claire Revere, the inside look, unable to fit it in there. Trying to find Paige Kesher. Just a little bit out of her reach. Normile picks up once again. Normile looking deep to Luke Ryan now. Ryan floating to the back of the end zone, elevating, and good defense there from Seattle. Wynn picking up now and carrying that disc out of play.
I think that gust maybe caught Normile off guard, but Hauser was all over Luke Ryan and would have made that tough either way.
Yeah, even if the hat stayed in bounds, definitely would have been a tough grab. Mixtape on offense once again. Burton now matched up with Daru.
Simultaneous open side cuts from Mixtape.
A
little out of sorts.
Deep shot. Looking for Revere. Revere a lot of space down that break side. Normile catches up now. Revere trying to find an option. A little bit of clutter in the backfield for Seattle. Small ball here between Burton and Revere. Burton launching into the end zone, and Hauser gets underneath it for Seattle's first point of the game. Brad Hauser bringing it in on the floaty flick from Mark Burton, 2-1.
Lovely weighted throw there from Burton. Gets it out in front of his target, but bends it around from an unusual angle to do so. Can be difficult from that front of stack cut to somehow also get it away from the defense. But showing off some of his skill. It's a nice target with Hauser.
Leaning back a little bit there. Looks like he really tried to put the touch on and give Hauser a good shot. Learned from Normile's mistake, which set up that the Philadelphia turn, set up that Seattle score. Normile putting it up a little bit floaty there and ended up sailing out of play, out of Luke Ryan's reach. Hauser punching it in. That's an important hold right now for Seattle. Really needed to get that one. Looking a little bit rough, and it's still not a clean one. We still have not seen a point from Seattle's offense yet where they have not made forced a turnover or an errant throw. And outside of that first initial layout, it's been tough. We haven't seen too many really forced turnovers so far from Philly's defense. Seattle just looking like they're still trying to find a rhythm.
So they're back out on D. Another look at the Amp O-line as the pull goes up from El Salam.
Long floaty pulled down. Sean Mott receiving here for Philly. Mott scoring that first point for Amp. Nico Lake breaking around to Nikki Spiva. Spiva taking a shot deep. Looking in the area of Linda Morse. Morse goes up, brings it in. Gets it right back to Emily Shields. To Mott now. Upline to Shields. Shields into the end zone, and that's going to be a hold for Amp. Nice patient offense, taking the shots when they're there. And a little upline to Shields for the goal.
Great point there for Morse and Shields. Not the best throw, I guess, from Spiva, but Morse able to use her size and awareness to get to the disc first, and then Shields really aggressive in the red zone after taking the dish from Morse. Taxed with the give and go, gets to the front cone to receive that score from Mott. Take another look at the Huck.
It's an interesting angle that Spiva released this at. Tried to get it inside out and put it out in front of Morse, instead just kind of puts it right at her. Excellent job to go up two hands there and attack it.
There's the give and go from Shields. Slows up a little bit. I think she might have thought it wasn't coming, but then Mott bends the backhand around. Shields gets there.
So Philly off to a good start once again on offense. It is 3-1 now, Amp out in front. Sean Mott now with a goal and an assist in the early going of this one. Amp's D-line back out there. Force a turnover every time so far they have been out on the field. Have to see if that trend continues. Excited this game finally happened, Keith. These two teams met 3 times last summer. It's the first time they're meeting this summer. So it's nice to see these two teams take the field again. Definitely a benchmark game in a lot of ways for Mixtape, but also for Amp. Amp obviously winning the U.S. Open, looking strong in doing so, but didn't get a chance to see Mixtape there. And this is going to be a team that, despite their early season struggles, is getting better and will likely be in the mix for a semifinal appearance at Nationals.
Now trying a junk look.
Another great throw from Burton. Inside out flick downfield to Hauser. Excuse me, that was
Dom Cavallero, I believe, with the shot.
Yes, Dom Cavallero with the shot. Nice inside out inside out flick there, taking advantage of the zone, putting out the space. Hauser with his second goal of the game. Philly running a bit of a different look there. Nice touch to that throw. Hauser just outrunning everyone downfield.
Hauser, a tremendous athlete. Cavallero, a lot of trust, putting that well out in front. But well put and run down there by Hauser. Nice to see them navigate that look pretty effectively.
Didn't seem to offer a whole lot of resistance for Mixtape. Seattle working through that pretty easily. They didn't honestly get a chance to even see what Amp was attempting to do because of how quickly they moved it through there.
And we talked about some of the struggles for Mixtape this season, which have been a little bit surprising. It looked like Amp might be going the same way to start the year. They
absolutely
get out of the gates. I think they took a loss to Space Heater, the new Mid-Atlantic team out of D.C.
They lost to Alloy, Pittsburgh Alloy, another in-region opponent at the Amp Invite at the beginning of June, that was.
And then they traveled to Worlds with some of the players that they're missing now, like Michael Ing and Alicia Dixon, and struggle there, even with those really strong additions to the roster. So I think there were some concerns. Now, they put a lot of that to bed with their performance at the U.S. Open, but we've seen that this Amp team, when they're not playing well, is susceptible.
Yeah, and chatting with Nico Lake before this game, he said that he didn't even think the team played great at the U.S. Open. He thought there was a lot of room still for improvement heading into the heart of the club season. He thinks that so far today they've looked a lot more like the team that was a national championship team last year, falling in the finals. Lake now with the disc. Upfield once again to Morse. Shields now about 20 yards out. Inside break back to Lake. Upfield into the end zone. Morse with the goal. Philly once again looking pretty fluid on offense.
Linda Morse has been very sharp to start this game, and there with an ankle-breaking cut from the front of the stack to get the goal. And the Pittsburgh alum, I think, is really getting an opportunity to step up for this Amp team this year.
Looked like initially Lake was throwing that for Morse to go get it and then looking to follow to score himself. Morse had so much space, she just managed to milk that into the end zone. 4-2 now. Philly still in front, looking comfortable. Seen a couple of turns from that D-line offense, but the Philly O-line looking very smooth so far and certainly in a good position to continue to pace this one for Amp as the game rolls on.
Both of these teams have some of the best female units in the division. It's a big part of what's made them successful, and Amp is well known for their stars on the women's portion of the roster, and to have players like Morse improving and rising up to meet that level of perhaps more well-known players like Normile or Rahama Zafari, and last year Anna Thompson broke onto that scene as well. She's on the sideline, not cleated up right now, so I think she's taking this weekend off.
She had missed parts of Worlds as well. I think she's been dealing with a couple of nagging injuries, so hopefully we'll be all set to go come the series, but still a little more time until she has to take the field once again. Seattle back on offense here. Mark Burton again moving it, taking a shot downfield. Once again looking downfield for Hauser. Hauser elevating, getting it over the Philadelphia defender there and tossing it to the end zone. That's Ellen Goldberg in the front of the end zone for the goal for Seattle. Hauser now with an assist to his name, that time catching it outside the end zone before tossing it in for the score.
It's Brad Hauser's house. He goes up strong, a contested huck, but trust from Burton that Hauser can hold position and go get the disc.
Great little give-go there, getting
Really
Burton into some space.
Not a lot of room for this, but Hauser attacks the disc.
Interesting little flip there. Bold decision, but clearly trust Goldberg with the space she had to go make the play on that.
Yeah, prioritizing getting the disc out quickly over safely, but recognizing that with that much room, it could just get it out of his hands real quick for a score.
We've seen players attempt that a ton, obviously, over the course of the club season, and much smaller windows, and of course, that doesn't work. But Goldberg getting herself enough separation there to make it easy for Hauser. But Hauser, great offensively so far. He's been the go-to guy on this mixtape O-line pretty much every time they step on the field.
And I think in many ways, in the mixed division, Hauser has earned a ton of respect for a guy who's been plying his trade for this mixtape team for quite a few years. But perhaps the broader audience isn't familiar with his name, but he's been a very effective cutter for Mixtape for a number of seasons and one of the best offensive weapons in the mixed division.
And looking like it in this game so far as Philly now back on offense.
Spiva drawing this El Salam matchup yet again.
That is going to be a fun one to watch throughout. Spiva, stall count rising here. Not sure where his dump is. Has to flip it up. Finally gets it away. Robert Ruse getting the disc. Around for Mott. First signs of resistance here from Mixtape, really forcing Philly to work hard to get some of these resets here. Mo Safari taking a shot, looking for Normile. Normile going up and getting it in traffic. Back to Roos. Spiva breaks side around into the end zone, and Mo Safari brings it in. El Salam bidding, unable to get a hand to it, inches away from making a sensational defensive play.
Amp gobbling up yards with the deep throw there to Normile. And something to take away from that one, and I love this. Mazafari puts that huck up early. Normile basically makes the break to get open, and at that point, she probably has the most separation she's going to get. And Mazafari, even though the throw isn't perfect, she gets rid of it early so that she can take advantage of that separation and let her cutter hold on to that advantage.
She puts it in a space as well. Is getting another chance to see here the goal into the end zone. El Salam inches away from making that play. Very close. Good read by him to make the effort. But going back to Mo Safari's huck, in a place where you give Normile a chance to attack it. You put it out into that in front of her and let her go get it. Normile showed in the college division this past year, she is one of the best in the country at doing that. The disc is in the air. She will aggressively attack it, does not wait for it to come to her, goes and gets it.
Yeah, she's known for her ability as a handler, but you can see in this play that as a cutter, she can read the disc very well. She's great at body positioning, often gets it at the height of her jump and can win those battles in the air. And Abbott with a respectable job on defense, but the defense is always going to be at a disadvantage on those kinds of plays.
It's difficult, especially when Normile takes positioning that early. Burton now again for the Seattle offense. Mixtape settling in a little bit now after some rocky early points. Revere. Hauser again downfield. Revere now throwing it. Hauser, excellent read. Boxing out and making it look easy. Richard Robinson going up there early, unable to get it, and so Hauser will stroll into the end zone for his third goal so far in this game. Hauser responsible for every point in this game.
He's putting on a show here, and Robinson doing everything he can. Came up just short this time. I have to think going through his mind, Robinson's like, I finally got him. I finally got him. This one's hanging a little bit. I'm in position, and just misses it. Hauser outfoxing Robinson a little bit at the end on that one.
Certainly a veteran move there as you watch Hauser just take the body position, knowing that he's going to give Robinson a tough angle at it and just waiting for it to come down in the end. He's got all the space and time that he needs there. Excellent weighted throw as well, just to beat the defense. We've seen some tight windows so far, but
Absolutely.
Hauser proving that it doesn't really seem to matter.
Mixtape has not been afraid to throw those hucks straight up the line, mostly in the same third, particularly when they're going to Hauser, and I guess you can see where that confidence comes from.
Yeah, well, he's so far. They've got 4 points. He's got 3 goals and an assist so far. He's done everything for this Seattle offense to this point.
You know, for a Mixtape, I sure feel like I'm hearing the same track over and over again.
So, Philly back on offense now. El Salam pulling once again. Wind kind of picking up. Hasn't been too windy so far today, but starting to become a little bit of a factor. Trissolini now up to Lake. Good defense from Seattle.
No options, really, for Philadelphia to start.
Spiva taking a shot, looking for Lake, and going to be overthrown there. Lake trying to beat Evan Klein deep.
Lake
Unable to get positioning.
Lake didn't even have positioning when that throw went up. Spiva, a little bit of a desperate look there.
Which is interesting because it was early in the stall count. I think he got a little bit greedy there, hoping that Lake could outrun his defender, and unable to really even come close to that one. Klein now with the disc, upfield to El Salam. Chen around, excellent bid there from Abbott, and she's going to call herself down. Excellent spirit call there from Burt Abbott. Looked like she had brought it in initially, but
yeah, I think she could have gotten up and kept playing, and nobody would have said anything about it, but great spirit there.
I certainly would not have. I thought she made the grab. Little scooper over the top here into the end zone now. Shields at the front of the end zone. Morse with the assist. Crafty throw from Nico Lake to set it all up. Amp punching it in on offense once again. First time we've really seen a turnover from the Amp offense, but getting it back and getting the goal nonetheless.
First time since the first point. They turned it over on their first possession, and then as we see the Abbott save that was not to be. Abbott, unfortunately, has been the source of the turnover on both of those break chances for Mixtape. Linda Morse, Emily Shields, and Nico Lake all continuing to play well for the Amp offense.
I'm watching that replay again, and I still don't know where Burt Abbott dropped that disc. It looked to me like she made the play. It's a little bit surprising there, but
she's looking at the camera now. Maybe she's gonna get up and say, "Maybe I did catch that."
Maybe she did. I don't know. I mean, she obviously had the best perspective on that, and we'll know than anybody else. Maybe it bobbles a little bit there as it hits the ground. Clearly, the disc sliding along the ground, but it looked like she had possession.
The only way is that because of the angle that our camera's at, the disc blocks the view of a point when her hand releases the disc. And so it looks like it's still in her hand because it's pinned between her hand and the disc. But she may say, I no longer have control of that. I think there's no way anybody could have called otherwise. Not that I'm advocating that she should have bent the truth.
I get your point there. Yeah.
But really just even more credit to her for conceding possession in an honest fashion.
Seattle on offense once again. Bolton now with the disc. Wind picking up once again. Revere now underneath.
When the wind is gusting, it's coming from the far sideline to the near side, so probably you would say Mixtape going slightly upwind, but for the most part a crosswind.
Hauser catching it this time and not on a deep huck. Surprising to see that happen. Actually hanging out in the handler space for a change.
Don't see a lot of Mixtape offensive points with no Mark Burton, but here we are.
Grace Noah back over to Win. Yeah, certainly interesting to see Burton off the field for this point, but so far Mixtape looking patient and willing to work it sideline to sideline. Continue to swing it.
At this point, I think every player on this Mixtape line has spent time in the backfield.
At some point or another, for sure. Bolton now on the swing from Hauser. Excellent poach there from Luke Ryan to prevent the downfield throw. Hauser again with the disc. Heavier usage on this point, but further away from the end zone for Hauser. Tight window there and knocked away. I think we're going to need a foul call, though. Bolton and Peleg going for that disc, and Luke Ryan laying out into the scene as well.
Take another look. Hauser forced to try and squeeze this one up to Burton.
Definitely some contact, but It's going to be a tough grab regardless.
I think the question would be whether Peleg had the right to that space or not.
Looks like the decision is going to be that it's going to go to Bolton.
All set?
Take a listen
So-
now. Observer is just making sure everyone's in the right place there as Peleg and Bolton reset. Bolton stalk out rising, finally looks back to find Hauser. Upfield to Revere, Normile on her. Into the front of the end zone, not quite in yet. Tight windows and another tight throw. Grace Noah on the goal line. Nguyen fitting in there. Not much space at all, but Mixtape gets the hold. 6-5 now. They still trail, but not going away and looking a lot more comfortable on offense since those early points.
Yeah, a point that I think both teams are going to kind of say we feel good about. A lot of pressure there from AMP. They contested a lot of first looks for Mixtape, made them work the disc among the handlers. But Mixtape's going to say, hey, you know, even when they're bringing the pressure, we can still punch it in. So I think both teams are going to walk back to the line saying that was a strong point for us. Only one of them is probably the more correct of the two. We just don't know which one.
I think at this point you have to think it's Mixtape. They've really struggled so far, in the early goings at least. When that pressure got ratcheted up, we saw a lot of early turnovers and even just some errant throws, something that we're not used to seeing. Obviously, we've seen teams kind of get the better of Mixtape so far this year, but it's usually not of their own design. It's usually somebody who outplays them. So far, all of their turnovers for the most part have just been throwaways. So it's good to see that even with the pressure getting ratcheted up there from that Philly defense, that Mixtape finds a way to tough it out and score in those tight windows. That was not much space at all on the goal line.
Yeah, and it wasn't even Brad Hauser.
I know, shockingly, Brad Hauser not involved. It turns out that Seattle can score without Brad Hauser having to touch the disc either in the end zone or as it's released into the end zone.
There goes this perfect game.
Unfortunate, but I think Mixtape will take it. I think Hauser will as well.
Absolutely.
Spiva now matching up once again with El Salam. Switching the force here, backhand look now from Seattle. Forcing Philly into that wind. Tight windows this time for the Philly offense. Excellent defense there. Seattle closing down the space and coming very close to getting a D. Bruce now with the disc to Lake. Up to Mott. Mott laying out, unable to bring it in. Just a little bit out of his reach. Thrown too far inside by Lake. As now a chance for Seattle to break. Nice little throw there to get it back to El Salam. Evan Klein now. Thought about giving it to El Salam. Now we got a matchup downfield between Mott and El Salam, hoping the disc goes up to one of those two. Off the sideline, finding Bailey. Duffel now. And, ooh, just a little bit too tight of a window there. Definitely had an opportunity at it. Emily Smith-Wilson had her hands on it. Nico Lake taking a step to close down the space and just giving Smith-Wilson enough to think about there, forcing the turnover. Mott taking a shot downfield now, looking for Mo Safari. Mo Safari reading it, and Mott putting it out of her reach.
Well, that's one of those ones where, you know, we talk about the same third throws that we've seen from Mixtape. That's one of the dangers of that same third throw. So difficult to read. I don't know if Mo Safari catches up to that if she's in the middle of the field, but she probably has a better angle and a better read on it.
And that was the same thing we saw earlier from Spiva looking for Lake. Spiva just trying to put it up there. Obviously, Mo Safari had a better positioning there, but still a difficult throw just based on where the players are on the field. And Shields coming very close to getting the D there. Mixtape digging it out up to Klein now. Klein taking a shot downfield, looking for El Salam. El Salam going up with two hands over Spiva. And now Spiva flips it, El Salam flips it into the end zone. That'll be a goal for Mixtape getting the break back here. El Salam with a two-handed dunk on Nikki Spiva there. Toss it in for the goal.
Went up like he was on the receiving end of an alley-oop there. Comes down with the two-hander. And that is a spark for this Mixtape team. Whenever they get one of those huge plays from El Salam or some of the other big athletes on this team, he's good at converting that energy into hype for his teammates. That's when this Mixtape team can really get rolling. Look again as El Salam goes over the top of Spiva with two hands, takes the dish. And you can see the swag just transitions right to Lozano with the spike. Mixtape's feeling good as they get this one back on serve, 6-6.
First break of the game for Mixtape. Philly's offense. A little bit of a different look now as we see Normile cross over. But definitely going to need to find a way to respond. Similar looking D-line out for Mixtape once again. Obviously success. Want to keep that same group out there together. El Salam now with the disc, getting ready to pull.
And of Amp's 5 turnovers, 4 of them have been on Hucks.
Not that surprising so far from what we've seen. I saw a little bit of Philly's game earlier against Raleigh, and that seemed to be a consistent theme. As soon as they started forcing it, Normile taking a shot now, and Ryan with a ton of space. El Salam catching up easily, though. Ryan going up and getting it. I think we're going to have joint possession here, and not sure what the call is definitely going to be. That was a really close play.
El Salam probably should turn it and give Normile a little credit there for hanging that one up long enough for him to get back into it, but not able to get there first. At best a tie, and that's going to go Luke Ryan's way. Totally the right idea, but a little too much height on this one. Really could have been an easy completion.
Ryan was open with acres of space. There was nowhere anywhere near him, and you see there. Luke Ryan, it's uncommon to see Khalif El Salam out-jumped, and Luke Ryan certainly just did it right there.
At least equaled in jumping.
Yes, as the two of them went up together.
Still am not sure who got there first, but regardless, it's going to be a score. And Ryan with a well-set-up cut. Take another look. Maybe we can decipher. I think Ryan gets there first.
I think Ryan gets there first.
All right.
And that's El Salam had positioning as well. Ryan had to go up and over.
He's going to take that back home with him, and I'm sure feel good about that.
Luke Ryan has been a player that's burst onto the scene for AMP within the past year. Really played well at the World Ultimate Club Championships. Continued to look strong at the U.S. Open. And showing why he is part of this AMP O-line there with a sensational grab.
And I imagine last year Mixtape did something, maybe the only team I've ever seen do this. They basically just did a list of times in which they got beaten in individual plays and like called each other out on Twitter. And that one could make the list.
I think that might.
I could definitely see Khalif saying, hey, this time this guy got me.
And he certainly did there, punching it in for the AMP score. 7-6, Philly getting the goal. Mark Burton back on the Seattle offense here. A field, acres of space here. No one anywhere near Paige Kesher. Cavallero now, back to Burton. Patient offense so far, just right up the middle so far from this Seattle offense. Just taking in cuts into that space. Travel call here. Normile on the mark, matching up with Ellen Goldberg.
I'm going to have to make a note to go back and look at this point later.
Burton into the end zone. Cavallero there. Lots of space. Excellent throw from Burton with that beautiful break around backhand. Tying it up at 7.
And I'll go back to this later, but for now I want to take some time to recognize that Burton around throw. Watch this backhand just slice through the air to Cavallero. Puts a little bit of bounce on that so it gets away from the mark. Really well executed by the reigning player of the year, Burton.
That's all in one motion, too. Fluid, step out, hit the ground, and whip it around his mark, all in one fluid motion. I think we got our first timeout call of the game here. Both teams tied at 7.
Well, good. That gives me a chance to go back because I as an analyst, I'm hoping to go take a look at this after the game because to start that point, remember there was a wide open cutter for Mixtape. They initiated that point with 3 women making kind of a crossing pattern, an unusual set of cutting patterns. And I think that the AMP defenders got confused about who they were supposed to be covering. And so Burton able to just hit a wide open. You see just Paige Kircher completely undefended, as I really think they just confused the defense. Maybe the defense was planning on coming down and matching up based on where the cutters were supposed to be.
We got a different angle here.
Yeah, you see this clearing pattern from Revere Goldberg takes off deep, Kircher comes under, and the defenders just get lost trying to figure out what to do against it.
It seemed like they were really trying to prevent the over-the-top throw to start, but they had almost too many players back there looking to take away that deep shot.
So nice set from Mixtape, works to great effect and gets play started. And I think the combination of Revere and Goldberg on this line provides two really dangerous deep threats that female defenders have to cope with. And Kircher, a smart cutter who can come underneath and go to work.
Now, Keith, I have a question for you. Obviously, it's been 3-0 points since we've seen Brad Hauser score a point here. Is he in a bit of a slump? Is that what's happening right now?
I think he's sharing. I think
okay.
Sharing is caring.
He's just being a good teammate?
Absolutely.
And I actually have to admit, I think that was the best offensive point I've seen so far from Mixtape. They've obviously looked a lot more comfortable since the early going. And so far, that probably was the best point. Everything was right down the middle up until you had the Burton around break, but just looking calm at taking the space that was given to them and hitting the open receiver downfield. Philly back on Mo Safari upfield. Linda Morris doing a lot more work downfield. Looking downfield now for Shields. Floating there, Shields going up, unable to bring it in. Lexi Garrity knocking it away, and El Salam coming over the top for some help defense. Abbott. Floating it a bit, but Klein getting it. A lot of contact there from Ruse. Bailey back to Klein. Lozano now over to the sideline, finding Abbott once again. And Abbott rushing the throw a little bit there back to Klein. That is the third time now we've seen Abbott turn it over with a break opportunity for Mixtape.
Having a tough one, but the Mixtape captain is no stranger to adversity.
Excellent high release throw there from Spiva over to Trissolini. Trissolini playing in just a second tournament of the year. Did not compete with the team at the World Ultimate Club Championships, but was part of the U.S. Open title tour. Trissolini around, looking into the end zone. Spiva towing the line, and that is going to bring it to half. Spiva with an excellent read on the disc. Trissolini putting it just where his receiver could go get it. And that's going to be a goal for AMP to take half, 8-7.
I was just going to say, I feel like Calvin Trissolini has had a quiet half, and that's probably his best play of the half. I love the fake he uses to set up that around. El Salam defending the upline cut from Spiva, trusts that mark's not going to give up the around. Trissolini goes to fake the offhand backhand, draws the defense up into the air, and then really quickly pivots to throw, or doesn't pivot, to throw the no pivot backhand around for the score. It's going to take us to halftime. AMP with an 8-7 lead over Mixtape. We've got a great one going here. We'll take a 10-minute break. Do not miss the second half.
Every time the pressure rises, we play better. Let's go, take down the trail.
An Ulti World subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Bird Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.
Welcome back here into Middletown, New York. AMP leading 8-7, treated to a fun first half and hopefully a good second half to follow. Chris McGlynn alongside Keith Rayner here, getting ready for the second half of action. Philly starting out on defense. Mixtape looking to punch in the opening hole to tie things back up. Here inside our little tent here as we're getting set for the second half. Nice setup here for us. It's been pretty sunny, so the tent's been nice to avoid the sun. But Keith, it was a fun first half. Obviously, we've seen some really good contributions on both sides for Philadelphia. Linda Morse showing up in a big way. Early on in this one, Brad Hauser showing up and doing pretty much everything for Seattle Mixtape. Who's had the bigger impact for their team so far in this game?
Ooh, pretty close one. I think I'd take Hauser by a slight margin, but if Hauser owned the first quarter, I would say that Morse was better in the second quarter. But these two teams, like those two players, narrowly separated.
And it's funny because those aren't the biggest names, I guess we'd say, on either of these rosters, but those are the two players who have definitely done the best and been the players that have been looked to consistently. Burton now taking a shot downfield. And there is Brad Hauser. Shockingly, Brad Hauser in the end zone going up, and a nice little punch spike there to capitalize on what was an excellent deep shot. Hauser gets back on the score sheet. Now his 4th goal, if I am correct on that one, to go with an assist. Brad Hauser looking phenomenal so far.
And speaking of big names, don't look now, but Mark Burton tallies his 3rd assist.
He can heat up in a hurry.
Absolutely. And that one just hanging up, and Ryan's really in a tough spot to try and win that one in the air when Hauser's got the advantage going into it. But nicely executed by Mixtape out of the half. Glad you could join us on this Labor Day weekend for the Pro Championships. A lot of you probably out celebrating the holidays, or it's like the thick of wedding season, right?
It really is. I've actually got some fun stories about both teams. Philadelphia Amp missing a couple of players due to weddings. A former player getting married this weekend, so a couple of players out there for that wedding. But Jesse Bolton, Khalif El Salam, and Z Chen all showing up this morning after going to a wedding last night in Seattle in what they wore to the wedding on the fields. Talking to Burt Abbott earlier, telling me that they were taking off like belts and ties and everything else as they changed. They went straight from dress shoes to cleats.
It's got to be a tough transition, but Mixtape blessed with the 1st round bye, so got away with that. Even our own Charlie Eisner, I believe, is missing a wedding to bring you this one.
That is true. Philly back on Lake upfield to Mo Safari. Stalk out rising. Excellent D there. Nice little run through, and I think we're going to get a call here from Mo Safari. Z Chen looked like he had made the run through D, beating Ruse to the spot.
There may have been a stall call back at Mo Safari's throw.
Interesting decision there. Going to come back, or could be possibly a travel on Mo Safari, I wonder. Coming on 6, so definitely a contested call.
Very weird scenario.
Not entirely sure what happened. Spiva with a shot into traffic. Ruse going up and bringing it in. Morse also in the area, but Ruse bringing that one in front of Morse and a pair of Seattle defenders. 9-8 now, Philly.
So Spiva adds his 2nd assist on the huck to Ruse. I'm still not exactly sure how that's worked out, but Spiva getting away from that El Salam matchup, instead matching up with another former Sun Dodger, Reed Hendrickson, and able to get off the huck for the score.
That's been a fun matchup to watch so far. Spiva and El Salam. Seeing the two exchange some blows kind of going both ways. Both not doing a whole lot to slow the other down offensively so far, but definitely playing strong defense, just not enough to really, these two are really good offensive players, and we've seen that kind of on full display so far.
And with the top 5 teams in the power rankings here, I'd say for the most part, most of your mixed division teams you would consider in title contention. I feel like that pole position is up for grabs at this tournament.
You mentioned that to me earlier. I have to agree with you. I would be kind of surprised if, I mean, what was your point? You said that the winner of this tournament will come out as the #1 seed?
It's possible. I mean, you know, you don't know how the path's going to go. Maybe a team that didn't finish at the top of their pool ends up in the final and wins the final. It's tough to say how their algorithm will shake out. But I do think whoever wins this tournament very well could position themselves as the favorite, if not the #1 seed at Nationals.
Offsides here as ample pull once again. But back to that, yeah, I think there's a good chance at that. I mean, Mixtape won this tournament last year, ended up going into Nationals as the #1 seed, so definitely a little bit of history there. Would not surprise anybody, I think, to see the winner of this tournament take the #1 seed, especially if it is AMP, as they've already won the U.S. Open.
And for a while, it looked like AMP might be playing in a one-bid Mid-Atlantic. Space Heater struggling for their part. Alloy not really contributing a ton for AMP, but Space Heater just inside the mid margin, and really not a lot to change that at this tournament as Mixtape's offense gets back underway.
Hauser matching up with Ryan once again.
Side stack look for Mixtape, now kind of flowing into more horizontal.
Kircher upfield to Goldberg. Travel called here on Goldberg.
Goldberg maybe kind of rounding that cut off. She, I also believe, is in her first year with Mixtape after playing for Washington Element as a graduate student.
Patient offense from Seattle. Tight window again to Hauser, but Hauser with the flip into the end zone, and shockingly, Brad Hauser again involved with the goal here, this time with the assist into the end zone there, finding Kai Yi Fong for the goal.
So the Hauser has gotten a new matchup here, it seems, with Luke Ryan, who I would say is kind of the stopper on this AMP team. But Ryan has not been able to slow down Hauser's attack, and as you see Bert Abbott wearing what I can only describe as a silly hat.
I'm going to have to agree with you there. Back to the point on Ryan. Ryan made the good effort there, layout attempt, but well out of his reach, setting up for a nice little easy backhand for the goal there. Tying it back up at 9. It's going to be interesting to see if either of these two teams, either of the two defensive units on these teams can step up here and make an impact in this second half. Outside of a couple of breaks, I think it was one per team we're at so far, Keith?
Yep, one aside.
So just one per side, and both offenses here coming out of half, holds all around. So I have to see if the defenses can somehow find a way to differentiate themselves. Seattle back on defense. El Salam notably not on this defensive point for Mixtape. Reed Hendrickson with a nice floaty backhand. Spiva right off the bat, throwing to Ruse. Ruse with a lot of separation, coasting onto it in the end zone. And that was an easy one for Philly. 2 throws, and Amp gets the goal.
Yeah, two throws, but one really did a lot of the work there. And, not to discredit Calvin Trusolini's horizontal 5-yard pass, but Roos just cooking his defender deep, and Spiva with what looks like an effortless 65-yard forehand shot.
That would certainly be the word that I would describe. Get another look at it here. See Roos get separation early, and just no chance of making it up there for Duffel.
I don't even know if Spiva was like really using his hips to drive that throw. I mean, it looked like it was almost entirely from his elbow and wrist that he powered that throw down the field. Very smooth motion.
Certainly an impressive throw. Amp on defense once again. Looks like Spiva's going to be crossing over here for a deep point after launching the huck to score that last point for Amp. Coach Patrick Sherlock out there trying to organize his team. We talked about it just a second ago. The defense obviously looking for a way to break through here. Both teams just holding, 2 holds per side out of half. Have to see if Spiva can make the difference. Bolton fielding for Seattle. Nicholas Dare now with the disc. Back to Hauser. This time Burton drawing the Spiva matchup. Revere thought about taking a shot. Good defense so far on this point from Philly.
And we've seen this before, Amp able to contest a lot of these first looks from Mixtape, but Mixtape's able to find places to go with the disc, and hold on to it until they can create the separation necessary to advance it.
I think we've seen a good adjustment here. Mixtape certainly looking a lot more patient on offense than they did in the first half. Win. Goldberg now in the middle of the field. Back to Burton. Burton taking a shot. Looking for Bolton. Bolton towards the back of the end zone. Bolton bringing it in. And that's going to be a goal for Seattle Mixtape, tying things up at 10. Luke Ryan once again in the area. Unable to make the play, though. Jesse Bolton finding some space all the way back there.
Bolton, now a handler. But I remember back when he was just a young buck playing for Carlton Cut. And he was consistently putting players on a poster in the deep space. And showing he's still visits every once in a while. May have moved away from the deep space, but happy to head back home every once in a while.
Maybe not the same Jesse Bolton deep cuts that you're used to seeing. That one's pretty easy for him, just kind of strolling onto that one in the back of the end zone. Not really having to elevate much for it.
Get you a couple of score updates from what's going on here at the Pro Championships. Revolver with a 10-7 lead on Sub-Zero. Johnny Bravo takes half 8-7 on Ring of Fire. Pony with an 11-7 lead on Patrol, all in the men's division. In the women's division, Grit up 12-3 on Fab. And am I seeing this correctly? Brute Squad working on a shutout. Up 11-0 on Heist.
Wow, that would be quite the finish there.
Heist is a nationals level team. Just to show you just how good this Boston women's side is. The number one ranked team.
They are certainly in the mix for a national championship this year after coming up just a point short last year against Fury. Mo Safari taking a shot looking for Nico Lake towards the back of the end zone. Lake taking positioning and going up over Z Chen for the goal.
Physical matchup there between Chen and Lake, but Lake able to hold position. Collects the floater from Mazafari. And this game is very close. Right now, offense is kind of just trading shots. Mazafari sees that one hang. Attempted help defense there by Lozano, but ultimately it is the handler, Lake, coming down with it.
Lake, the Georgetown product, showing up for this AMP team in recent years, becoming an integral part of the offense. Making that one look fairly easy. Definitely tough, though. Take that body positioning and to really use his physicality in a way that he didn't foul the defender in doing so.
AMP, after a first half in which they threw just one Huck score and turned it over 5 times, have now scored on 3 Hucks in this half.
Certainly
both teams have been exploring the deep space in the second half and to great success.
Reversal of fortunes for AMP for sure. Now, Keith, correct me if maybe I'm reading this wrong, but it almost seems like both offenses now are kind of just content to trade. It seems like both teams kind of recognize this is going to be a tight game, and maybe they're just waiting for some of the later points to really ratchet up some of the defensive pressure.
I think these defenses are still kind of experimenting, and usually you don't see teams at this point in the game still looking like they're feeling one another out. But they do seem to be, and it's interesting some of the personnel changes.
We've definitely seen a bunch of different personnel groups on both sides. Really on both lines as well. Hauser gets the disc now in the middle of the field. Over to Bolton. Bolton ripping it downfield. Looking for Mark Burton, and a lot of contact there. Stephen Eng trying to take positioning and tripping up Burton.
Eng frustrated because I think he knows he's just going to have to give up this one as a foul.
Which is unfortunate because I don't think Burton was getting there. I think that was a little bit overthrown from Bolton.
Well, now they're going to discuss, so maybe going incidental contact. Take another look. Just the legs get tangled up.
I think Ang is trying to argue that Burton cut into his path. Take a listen in here.
That's my interpretation. You hear that? Just foul. Thanks, Russell. Yeah, thank you.
I think the decision there going to be an uncontested foul.
The players' paths did cross, but it's not quite clear to me, at least from just one look, at which player did the crossing, if not both. It kind of looked like Ing's read was that he needed to go around to that far sideline, and Burton's read was to get tighter in away from that far sideline. So players kind of cross paths, and maybe a do-over is the optimal result here.
Clearly not an uncontested foul. Clearly a contested foul as the disc goes back to Jesse Bolton there. Burton now with the disc, taking a shot of his own downfield, looking for Clay Revere. Normile getting a hand to it and knocking it away. Big defensive play there for Philly, an opportunity to break. First time that either team's had one of those in a while.
Nice play by Normile. Burton, that was a tough throw, to say the least, but he's made a career out of making difficult throws.
Stephen Ng now in the middle of the field. Rosso thought about it. Finds Normile underneath. Excellent poach defense there from Brad Hauser. Making his presence felt on defense this time around. Bolton unmarked. As is Nguyen.
So you can see these poaches in the lane trying to slow down the Mixtape offense, make them go side to side rather than downfield.
Wynn picking up as well, certainly becoming a factor. Wynn over to Burton. Lots of space there for Kersher.
Just taking short throws, Mixtape just swinging the disc really.
A lot of the cuts they're coming from the same area here, towards the front of the stack. Revere gets it back to Burton. Pick called downfield. We'll stop play for just a second.
Well, that dump swing is opening up the open side, actually, for Mixtape. The threat of them going to the break side is allowing their cutters to create some room to get back to the open side to catch these gainers.
Into the end zone, and that's going to be another hold for Mixtape. Philly with a chance at the break, unable to convert. In the end, Kai Fong scoring for Mixtape to make it tied at 11.
Fong with his second goal of the second half for Seattle. Burton with his third assist of the half and fifth of the game. You can see what a pivotal role he plays as the centerpiece, really, of the Mixtape offense.
Get a good look there at Normile's defense. Set up here. Here's the final throw from Burton. The cut set up well by Fong to get into the opening space at the front cone, and Burton putting it right on him. Offenses continue to trade. Tied up at 11 now.
Just as an update for you, no shutout.
Oh.
Heist punches one in.
Happy for Heist, unhappy for the storyline.
Don't see a lot of shutouts at this level.
It looked like we had one in our hands earlier in the men's division as well. Chicago Machine went down 9-0 against Raleigh Ring of Fire before finally scoring a point there. Ended up putting a respectable total as well, considering they went down 9-0. Final score that one 15-6. So
I'm not going to name names, but there is a team at this tournament who was shut out at a game at Nationals.
Yes, and actually on Twitter this morning, Denver Johnny Bravo making light of that, posting a picture of a bagel saying they were getting ready for their game against that team. Deep shot here in the area of Robert Roos, and Roos going up nonchalantly, bringing that one in. That's a goal for Philly. 12-11, quick one.
Some fancy feet from Roos, not only in the beginning of the cut, where he makes 2 to 3 changes of direction to free himself up, but then at the end somehow makes the sky and still toes it in. Here, watch the cut start again. Hard out, in, and then a great plant and turn. Beats Bailey deep. The throw hangs, so Bailey gets back into the play, and then Roos catches it and still has the wherewithal to make sure the feet come down in the end zone.
All around great play there from Robert Roos, making his impact felt here in this game. Second time we've seen him go deep to make what was a great grab there for the goal.
And his third score on an amp puck, all of them coming from Spiva, all in this second half. So maybe the secret sauce for Amp's deep game was just to start putting it to Robert Roos all the time.
And have it come from Spiva.
Yeah, I don't know which one of them is more to blame. Maybe it's a combo deal.
Amp settles back into a 12-11 lead. Now Spiva crossing over to this D-line once again. Patrick Sherlock continuing to toy with some of the matchups that he will have Mixtape face throughout this game.
Sherlock, one of the top coaches in the mixed division, and in a division I would say by far is the least coaching presence at the elite level.
I think a good reflection of that is the fact that Mixtape is here without a coach. They've got a number of veteran players who operate as such, but no one really taking on a primarily sole coaching role for Mixtape.
I think that's part of it is most mixed teams have a couple of really experienced players who kind of just lead the way.
I mean, when you've got a player like Burt Abbott or Mark Burton, those players a lot of the times have all of the experience necessary. And Burton coaches at the college level, coaches University of Washington Sun Dodgers. So Burton taking a shot here.
And I'm
looking
sure
for Kersher.
His players like to see him dial up yet another assist. Coach Burton showing him how it's done with another shot to the end zone.
Kersher on the receiving end of that one, and another assist. That's 6 right now for Mark Burton?
Believe so, including 3 straight.
Mark Burton certainly heating up here in this second half for Mixtape. Needs to be in order to keep pace with Amp. Inside backhand sets up Burton for the flick. Kersher with a lot of space there, reading it well into the end zone.
Burton, not just an excellent player, but a strong coach. He's one of the top coaches in the college division this past year, helping that Washington team do quite well for themselves in nationals. It's hard to believe that the college season is not so far down the road. School just starting in many places, so teams are getting together for their first meetings and sometimes first practices, tryouts. I always think it's funny to think about there are players who will be all-region players, elite club players, who right now don't know about competitive ultimate.
Yeah, or are finding out for the first time.
Exactly.
This is when they're first introduced. It's a great time of year. It's weird for me. This is my first time ever in 9 years of playing Ultimate that I'm not going to be part of a school-based team. So it is certainly an odd adjustment for me not being back at school.
Welcome to the club, old man.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, if you want to come join me in the coaching ranks, feel free to give me a call.
I might take you up on that one. We'll have to see. Philadelphia back on offense now. Spiva in the middle to find Mott. Mott quiet in the second half after being a pretty ever-present player on that Philadelphia O-line in the first half.
So El Salam back on, but not in the same matchup. It seemed like there was a bit of junk from Mixtape to slow down these initiating Huck plays.
Mott taking a shot to Mo Safari. Mo Safari, a lot of space. Salam racing onto it. El Salam getting a piece of it and knocking it away. D there from Khalif El Salam.
And worth crediting El Salam not only for recognizing the play happening and getting back there, but the contact avoidance keeps the foul out of the play, makes the play safe, while still making the play.
Break opportunity here for Mixtape. Bailey to Abbott. Big upfield and knocked away by Sean Mott. Mott making an excellent defensive play, leaving his feet to do so.
Mott with a turnover and then gets it back with the block, flying through the air to give his team a short field.
That is a matchup I hope we get to continue to see. Spiva now on the goal line, lefty backhand, tight window. Linda Morse on the goal line, not quite in yet. And Yuge Shao getting open to the back of the end zone, but a pick call, gonna bring it back.
Spiva just kind of slowly drifted into the cutting lane right now, and now it looks like we'll come back for a reset.
Knocks his defender to the ground with the fake and finds Yuge Shao now in the break side corner of the end zone for an amp hold. Sean Mott with an incredible effort at the D back after the deep puck turnover, looking for Mo Safari, and Spiva punching it in there to Shao for the goal. Get a look here at the huck from Mott.
El Salam giving chase, and then you can see moves his body away from the cutter. That's that contact avoidance I was mentioning. And then Mott getting it back. Abbott tries to go wide on the around. What looks like a completion, that open window just slammed shut by Mott.
I'm trying to figure out if he gained more yards after he swatted it or before that happened. That thing got knocked and rolled. It ended up on the opposite side of the field from where the disc had been initially thrown.
It was like he was throwing it. It was, I'm going to get this block and throw the disc for the score all in one motion.
We've seen it happen before. Rare thing, but we've seen a fluid motion as players intercept it and toss it into the end zone.
Wait, you've seen that?
I have seen that. Granted, at a very low level, not quite the same thing, but I have seen it happen. I've seen, not necessarily in midair, but a player run onto a disc that was an errant throw.
Okay, I've seen that.
Yes.
I've been playing almost 20 years, and I've never seen someone intercept a disc midair and then throw it for an assist.
No, unless you're counting a greatest out of play, but
So,
that's usually just a catch.
Feel free to tweet at us.
I would love to see that.
The
if that's
Ultimate
happened.
Cast, I'm Full Field Hammer. If you have seen someone intercept a disc on defense and then throw an assist before touching the ground, please let me know.
I would be very interested.
Also,
in
we need to name that play. Maybe after said person.
That's true. That's open for naming, and I think you got to hit a spot on there. It's definitely the name could come from whoever has that travel call there, as Goldberg will walk back.
And I think that's the third defender we've seen call that rounding off travel on Goldberg. Seems like the team knows that she likes to round that cut a little bit.
That's probably a note there from Coach Patrick Sherlock as continues to break down this Mixtape team and figure out little things to get the competitive edge. And it definitely is a travel. We've seen her do it a couple of times now. Thrown away. Break opportunity here for Philly. Natalie Bova thrown right into her hands, now taking a shot downfield. Normile, Luke Ryan towing the line. Observer calling it in. That's a break for Amp. All of a sudden it is 14-12 after trading the entire second half. Philly gets the break that makes the difference right now. Just a point away from the score. And I think Jesse Bolton is having a conversation with Philly now.
That is a wild turn of events in a very close and hotly contested game. 13-12, interception on the play by Bova, and then the fancy toe in.
Hauser talking it over with the observer as well. Get another look here at the turnover. Burton just overthrowing Jesse Bolton.
Offhand, backhand from Ing to the break side. And then the throw. Looks like no disagreement from Hauser on the toe in, so not sure what the nature of the conversation is.
The way that Luke Ryan made that grab makes me wonder if
It
makes me wonder if there was possibly that he had stepped out of bounds before making the play, and maybe he didn't reestablish himself in bounds beforehand. That's my only thought process there. That could possibly be what Hauser was talking about, because it clearly seemed like he had his foot in. Take a look here. As Ryan, he almost seems like he comes back.
Right. I agree with you, but the observer is on the line to see the play.
Got an excellent view. Should be able to just make that call. So, call stands, and all of a sudden it's 14-12. We started this point out talking about naming a new play, and now all of a sudden we've got an all-important break here from Philadelphia. Opportunity to break to win now.
Spiva a little sheepish after coming over to the D-line and then shanking the pull out of bounds.
That was a far ways out. Not even close. Mark Burton will go retrieve it.
And how about this matchup brewing? Mark Burton and Nikki Spiva, two of the biggest names in the division. One of the many thrilling matchups we've gotten in this game.
There's been some great ones so far. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching Claire Revere matching up with Carolyn Normile so far. Great fake there from Cavallero, around to Burton. Wynn picking up once again, Kirscher. Hauser taking a shot, looking for Dom Cavallero. And Cavallero with an unbelievable grab. It looked like both players had misread it, and on the way down, Cavallero brings it in.
What a play from Cavallero, who has the height advantage of this matchup, well contested, but Cavallero stays with the play, has the focus and the skill to still come down with this one on the second effort. Goes up and then just grabs it with the left hand, the trailing edge of the disc, and still manages to close his grasp on it for the goal. And, I mean,
that focus.
That's a catch that keeps them in this game.
That focus, absolutely incredible. Tracking that as it comes down. DeRue gets a piece of it, it looks like, there on the replay. But it did not matter because Cavallero just tracked it, and it seemed like just kind of with the offhand, snagged it out of the air as he hits the ground.
Linda Morse also crossing over on that point from Amp's offense to the defense to match up with Goldberg, and another pretty thrilling one. And while that Cavallero matchup wasn't one of the ones we highlighted, it ended up being the one that defined that point. So now Mixtape with their backs against the wall.
Needing a break here to stay alive. 14-13 Philadelphia out in front. An exciting game so far. Seemed like in the early going that Amp was going to get out to an early start, possibly start to pull away. Mixtape clawing their way back in, tying things up at 7.
Mixtape's generated just a single turn from this Amp offense in the second half.
Both teams looking impressive on offense. Spiva now with the disc. Nico Lake, middle of the field. Morse once again. Much quieter second half from Linda Morse.
Mott with about 10 different fakes in the cutting lanes, and Salam glued to him. So Morse goes backwards into the reset space.
Emily Shields. Ruse now. Normile taking off deep. Ooh, a lot of contact there. Lake coming across and running straight into Bert Abbott. Abbott certainly in a lot of pain. Just a blindsided hit there for both players. Lake had no idea, actually believed the pass was intended for him.
Yeah, I think both Lake and Abbott looking at the disc and not aware of one another, and hopefully Abbott is okay, took really the brunt of this one.
Certainly a brutal hit. Definitely just a miscommunication there between Normile and Lake as to who was attacking that disc.
Abbott maybe having the wind knocked out of her. She's sitting to take a second. She's a strong woman, so probably going to take a little bit more than that to
sitting up
take
now,
her down.
nodding her head. Seems to be responsive at the very least. Seems to be doing okay. Talking it out with Normile, I believe, as to how things should proceed here. Take another look at it. Oh. Uncomfortable situation there for Bert Abbott and for Nico Lake. Neither one of them really expecting the contact.
Yeah, we've been fortunate between these two teams whose experience is on display in the way that they've been really responsible with their physicality throughout this game, and this one looks completely accidental.
Take a listen in here.
I think I'm fine.
You're fine?
Just
Okay.
my break.
So Abbott's going to sub out for the injury.
Got a chance to hear from her there. Said she thinks she's fine. Always good to hear after a scary hit like that.
Absolutely. So Emily Smith-Wilson, I think.
Yep, subbing in there. Matching up with Normile now. Tough ass to come in and guard one of the best women players in the mixed division.
On game point, no less.
Mott. Wacky around throw there. Patient offense from Philly.
Just happy to take the easy options when they present themselves.
And a
I think
timeout
a
called
timeout.
here.
And this is like textbook situation. Your team thinks about this situation all the time. Disc in the middle of the field, 10 yards out, game on the line. What do you do?
And this is where in practice you have players and teammates communicating with each other and saying, okay, remember we have timeouts. That's why you say it on the sideline, is so that way you can talk about it there. Welcome back again inside our booth here. Exciting finish in store, 14-13 here. Amp taking their timeout here, first and second half for either team. And this has been a phenomenal game so far. Both teams going back and forth, really no quarter given. Really small margin for error on either side. Only one break in the second half. That's the difference so far. Absolutely.
I mean, these are two very talented teams, and that's been on display. A lot of depth, talent, playmaking ability, but also execution. This has been a game where almost every mistake has been earned by the defense. And right now, Mixtape is desperate to earn another mistake out of this Amp offense.
Need to force a turnover here to have even a shot at tying this thing up and forcing double game point. Evan Klein checking in on the mark with Robert Roos. Roos been a surprise in this game, played very well so far. Had a couple of goals early on. Been a viable option in the deep space. Flips it up to Spiva. Spiva going up on the goal line. Not quite in yet.
Great defense by Z Chen, and then Spiva just slides one through the tiniest of windows, but a call.
We're going to get a foul call here, I believe. Chen calling it. Looks like there was actually some jersey pulling initially from Chen. I think we might actually have an injury call here from Nico Lake. He seems to be walking off here. Got stepped on, maybe? Oh, his cleat has broken, as you can see there now. He managed to step through his cleat.
Busted cleat. Going to send Lake off.
Spencer DeRue checking in now.
A little surprised to see Trissolini not brought in here. As
I think Trissolini, it's interesting. Trissolini is at a point where he missed the beginning of the season due to an injury and played at the U.S. Open and seemed to be kind of working his way back there. And talking to Lake before the game, Lake had said that he figured Trissolini would probably be all the way back now, considering how much time had passed. And into the end zone, that'll do it. Carolyn Normile with the goal. Nikki Spiva with the assist. And Amp finishes off Mixtape 15-13, an exciting game. Came right down to the wire. The difference being the one break in the second half for Philadelphia Amp. Amp moves to 3-0 now. Mixtape falls to 1-1.
Spiva with 5 assists in that second half. Many of them deep shots to Robert Roos. Those efficient holds were critical for Amp. Mixtape not able to utilize their break opportunities with enough efficiency. But a very tight game, and exactly what you'd expect from teams of this caliber.
It was a fun finals rematch, just a point different than last year's total. And of course, this time Philadelphia Amp coming out on top, showing why they are at the top spot right now in the Ulti World Power Rankings. Moving on now to 3-0, and seeming like the team to beat in the mixed division. Have to see if we see anything change. Reminder everyone that coming up in just a little bit on Ulti World, we have at 3:45 Boston Dig taking on Washington, D.C.'s Truck Stop, so make sure you tune in for that one. I am Chris McGlynn alongside Keith Rayner. Had a pleasure bringing this one to you. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. That'll do it. Final score once again, 15-13, Amp on top of Seattle Mixtape here at the Pro Championships.
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Bird Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.